name? I didn't ask.
Covyeau. It's a tough one.
Okay, we'll try it again. I'm thrilled to introduce Kristen Covyeau, Director of Football Operations and National Scout for the American Bowl, the new college football all-star game recently held in Orlando and aired on NFL Network. The Chicago native and Fort Lewis College alum with a business admin degree, he earned his master's in sports administration at the University of Louisville. His career includes recruiting at the Naval Academy, coaching at Western Oregon University, and video coordination at Navy. Though not a veteran, he's passionate about vet transitions via the American Bowl Soldiers to Sidelines partnership, where vets coach with NFL pros. He offers great insights on entering pro and college sports. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. This is a great opportunity to connect with the community that, we really want to serve through the American Bowl. I know I'm excited to learn a little bit more about everybody in this group. I know my background, just to give you guys kind of an update on kind of the things and progression of how I got to where I'm at, if that's helpful for any of you. Born and raised in Chicago, went to Fort Lewis College, played a little bit of college football very briefly. Ended up working with the team. I wasn't a great player, but I also got injured, so I stuck around with the team, worked with them for 3 years in video and operations before deciding to, get a real job, quote unquote. So worked in tech sales for a few years, decided I wanted to get back into football. So for me, started small, doing some high school football refereeing, worked with Pro Football Focus as a player participation analyst. And then I was lucky enough to get a graduate assistant position with the University of Louisville football program. So my background in video with the Division II program helped me kind of land something at Power Four, which is kind of rare, to have that much time pass, but it really did help me get that position. So I was a graduate assistant with the University of Louisville for 2 years. Worked with the Hula Bowl very briefly, which is where I met the executive director of the American Bowl now, Scott Phillips, who's with the Hula Bowl. So I met him in 21, worked with the Hula Bowl and personnel and operations for about a month, really short lead up before working with the Naval Academy, which was kind of my first combination of football and military. So I started off in player personnel there, and then also became the video coordinator under Coach Niumatalolo, who's a legend there. He was there for 25 years. I went on to be the running backs coach with Western Oregon for a year, which is where I still live. Went on to work with Northern Illinois football as offensive quality control and assistant tight ends coach. So our claim to fame that season was beating Notre Dame, if you guys remember that. So that was kind of our highlight for the year. I was in the Idaho Potato Bowl, and then 2 weeks later, I was helping out our executive director, Scott Phillips, at the American Bowl. He was with the Hula Bowl. So I helped him out there. And then we had talked about, making another All-Star game, which we was in the works for a little bit. So we officially launched it on July 4th, 2025. Pretty short runway, but we were excited to, be the third All-Star game. And, if you guys are familiar with that space, you've got Senior Bowl and Shrine Bowl who invite college football players from across the country to participate in front of NFL scouts. They're kind of the one and two. We became the third game, which is really cool. So unofficially, but yeah, that's kind of the last, 10, 15 years in a nutshell there. But
And hike. That's yeah, a bunch of different spots. So I'm curious. I mean, you did the education thing on, you got your business degree, master's.
Mhm.
How much did that help you fit into into doing those actual jobs? I mean, can you see some of that somebody coming up who doesn't necessarily have those degrees, or was it kind of a, hey, the degree led to the introduction?
Yeah, I would say the degrees are kind of funny because with football specifically or working in sports, you have the college platform is kind of the next step up from working in high school football or high school sports. That's the bridge to the professional landscape for a lot of people. So you have the opportunity to work for a college. I was going to that school and played for that school, so I was already there. So that's something that helped me. So that's one of the things that I recommend for young people that are involved in going to a school, and they may not necessarily be athletes that are playing for their programs, but let's say, you're a kid who's at, University of Clemson, or even just a person who's attending these programs, go work for your teams that are there. That's the easiest way for you to go get experiences. You are already there. And they're almost always looking for help for those teams. So if you want to go work for a basketball team, football team, baseball team, they're almost always looking for positions and people that'll come help. So it's a great way to get involved with those programs. For the master's degree, that was something where graduate assistant positions are really prevalent in sports, so in college sports specifically. So that's how young coaches, almost all coaches that are head coaches now at colleges started off as graduate assistants. So they've are either in, for offense, defense, special teams, maybe in operations, but most of them I would say have started off as a graduate assistant. So it's funny because the degree isn't really that important. It's more so the position. So it's a way for them to get you on staff. So you end up, being in a master's program, but that's almost not the important thing for you. It's more so being a part of the program. The education is secondary, maybe even like the third thing that you're worried about. But yeah, I mean
You're
it's
just
beneficial, but you know, just gets
yeah,
you in the door.
you're taking the education more for the like, hey, this is the box I need to check to get in that position at the college. Is that more what it feels like?
Yes, but it is the nice thing is they are paying for your education. So you're a graduate assistant, so it's an opportunity for you to get a master's degree that's paid for. So, it's kind of funny because you're around a lot of coaches that are, on paper really educated because they have all these degrees, but they don't really care about the degrees.
I did that in my spare time between drawing up plays and figuring out how to get this running back to stop dropping the ball. That kind of a
Exactly.
thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, is there anything that you took away from that master's program where you could say, hey, look, here's something I learned, guys, that you need to know if you want to get into this without having to spend the extra 2 years and do a dissertation?
Yeah, I would say one of the things that's really helpful is, if you have the opportunity to become a graduate assistant, a lot of times there's a time frame on that. So I believe you have to be 7 years removed from your undergraduate degree to be a graduate assistant with a team. So that might have changed in the last, however many years since I've done it. But I think it's a really great way to get involved with a program. And if you can do it, that's an excellent way to get, if you're working on an undergrad degree, if you're working on, finishing that up, whatever program that you're with, start to look into the graduate assistant programs because that's an easy way for them to get you in there. So I would say that one of the key takeaways for me from the master's program is it allows you, it gives you more options. Down the line, if you want to be an athletic director at a high school or, do something else, you have that degree, which helps you. But it's more so about getting the experience.
So, you and I talked about this a little while ago, but what does it look like for, say, Rob gets off active duty. He's like, hey, I'd kind of like to get into this, but no sports experience. Maybe you've got a retirement that's in your pocket, so you can afford to work for a little less. What does that path look like to you?
Yeah, so that's something that is really difficult about working in sports for a lot of people is financially, it is not rewarding, especially early. So, the earlier you are in your career, like in most things, the earning potential is low. In sports, it's very, very low, if not non-existent early. So if you have a pension and health insurance and these things that you can draw on early in your athletic career, that's really beneficial for you. If, because a lot of people, I've worked for free in the past with teams. I know a lot of people have. When I was a running backs coach at Western Oregon, I made $12,000 for the year without benefits. So, I mean, those are those are kind of the realities of working in sports, especially early, is that there isn't a lot of money involved. So, if you have that foundation, you're already ahead of the game. So that's something where, if you're transitioning out of the military, and you have those resources available, you are a step ahead. Like especially with the Skill Bridge program, if they're paying for you to get experience somewhere, you can take positions where, you know, Other people might financially not be able to do that. You're getting paid to do that. So, that's something that I would absolutely take advantage of with teams for volunteer positions.
So what is I mean, we were talking about the coaching side of it, but obviously that's a very small chunk of the program. What else is there that goes into getting the game going?
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of to provide a little bit of context with the American Bowl, I know we're a college football all-star game, so it's a little different than working with a program from, for us, like we're inviting players from all across the country to participate. We're only 1 week of an event, right? So we're scouting and building all this stuff up for a week of an event. Um, but in terms of working with a team, there are the smaller the programs, the less positions that exist, but the more that you can do and learn. So the larger the programs, when you think about working for a Fortune 500 company versus working for, a small mom and pop company, that's very much like working in college football or in sports. So if you're working for a high school, you might only have a couple coaches on staff. You're doing a little bit of everything. If you're working for a Division III program, again, you might have a few coaches on staff, but that allows you to get experience as an equipment manager, as a video coordinator, as a strength coach, as a position coach, maybe. So you get to do a little bit more of these things and get that experience. Whereas with a larger program, you might not have that opportunity because it's so siloed. So as you get up to the schools that you've heard of before, if you're working for an LSU, you might have 10 times the staff that a Division II program has, as well as the budget. So, once you kind of get your feet wet and get a feel for how things work with a college program, and then you start to see the bigger programs and what their budgets look like, where you were the equipment person, you were the video person, you were also coaching running backs. I just named three full departments that have 40 people at LSU versus you doing it by yourself for Division II. So, it becomes a little bit bigger, and allows you to get a little more experience with those things. So, there's what I like is a balance between the two where people can get experience and see both things, both worlds, because everyone just sees these huge programs and, all the things that they're doing. They have massive budgets, so people can get really siloed. And when I was with Louisville, my job was video. That's all I did. So that was my day. Every day I'm working 120 hours during fall camp a week, and then once we get into the season, that slows down a little bit. But it's all video versus when I was a running backs coach at Division II, I was doing that and I was helping out with video, I was helping out with the grounds crew. I was, you're doing all these things. So, it gives
Sweeping
you a
up the
little,
parking lot.
yeah, yeah, exactly. You're doing everything that you need to do to keep it rolling. So, definitely different atmospheres. But yeah, G5, best of both worlds. Yeah, G5 is a little bit, you have, I would say FCS is kind of the best of both worlds. Like you've got some funding for FCS. So for those of you that aren't familiar, you get your FBS. So that's your Power Four, like SEC, Big Ten schools. Then you've got Group of Five, which is the next kind of rung below, but they're also eligible for college football playoffs. So that's your MAC. When people say MACtion, the Tuesday, Wednesday night games, your American Conference, Mountain West. And then you have FCS. Those are still Division I teams, but they're just below FBS. So those are teams that are not eligible for college football playoffs. They have their own playoff format. If you guys remember when App State beat Michigan like 20 years ago and it was a really huge deal, that was because a team that was two rungs below beat one of those Power Four teams. So that's kind of the hierarchy. And then you get down to D2 and D3. But FCS kind of gives you, if you're in a well-funded FCS, you can get the kind of blend of you're still Division I. You see how that world operates, but you're not all the way down in Division II for like really kind of tough funding. Sometimes you'll have departments, like you'll have a director of football operations, potentially a video coordinator. So it's a good blend, and if you can get to Group of Five, that's I say that and like it's really easy to get into one of those programs, but it's extremely difficult. It's, think about if there's a position that's posted, there's probably 1,000 people that have applied for it. So, and that's
So what's
another
the
time.
end?
What's the in?
What's the end? Because you ain't gonna compete against 1,000 people without a Belichick resume. and everybody knowing you. So what do you think is the best path forward? What events, what are the right people to hit up, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, great question. So sports, working in sports in general, it's difficult to get in. It's like if you're trying to be an actor or something, you're trying to get these roles essentially. So it's really about word of mouth is really heavy in sports. So, if you're trying to get some experience and trying to get into these places, a good thing to do is try to build your base a little bit. So if you haven't worked in sports and you're trying to, getting in with the local high school and learning a little bit with coaching or smaller school program, you can reach out to those people a little bit more directly for, Division 2, Division 3, just volunteering, getting some experience with them. Even while you have your day job or, as you're transitioning out, if you can swing it, those are great things to do. Or even just reaching out to get some advice. But really it's trying to build that base a little bit, but also, getting advice from people who work in the industry, reaching out to them, asking them, hey, what's the best way for me to learn and get some more information on these positions? Because as I talked about, when you're working with the D2 program, D3, there are a lot of things that need to get done and they don't have a lot of people. So it's a great place to start because you can start to get some experience. So just finding like a local program where you're not moving your whole life, yet for if you get one of those bigger ones down the line, then you got to be prepared to move around a little bit. It's really hard to kind of stay centrally located and work in college sports or pro sports. But it's really just start off small, think about, you're trying to get experience. So reach out to these local programs and see, even with FCS too, reach out to some of those D1 programs that, hey, I'd love to volunteer my time and learn a little bit and, learn from you guys if you have any advice. I'd start off with advice, asking for advice on, how can I get involved in the industry and, different departments, whether it's coaching, operations, video, equipment, whatever that might be, just getting your foot in the door, because maybe you want to coach, right? That might not be the first job that you have, though, with a college program. So it's getting your foot in the door and then doing everything that they ask you to the best of your ability as quickly as possible. That'll help you develop trust. So if I can trust this guy to get all the operation stuff done, that, and with veterans, you guys are very familiar with what that culture looks like and getting shit done quickly, the operations aspect of it. These are the things that need to get done. You get those things done quickly, without really bitching about things. People notice that and they can
Yeah.
trust you. And then you can start to get some more responsibilities. So I think that's the best way to really get started and really develop your network. In terms of events, going to the NFL Combine, going to all-star games like the American Bowl, Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, that's where you're going to have a lot of NFL and college personnels. A lot of people would love to go work for the Denver Broncos, right? That's not your first job a lot of the time. So your first job is starting with a college or working your way up to it. So they want to see your body of work, right? So being veterans, you guys have a pretty good body of work in place. You might be able to leapfrog some people a lot faster, but you got to start somewhere. So I would say getting in, it's really just developing your network, going to the coaches conference that just passed in January. That's another really great event to go to. You're going to have people from all levels of college football, high school football that are going to this. You'll have guys that are big name college football coaches. You'll have Dabo Swinney there. You'll have, all those crew, but, the guys that work with him. And then before you go to those events, that's when you reach out to people and say, hey, are you going to be there? Would love to learn from you, love to meet you, just get some advice. And then that's how you start to develop your network a little bit.
Good stuff. Hey, Brent, go ahead, sir.
Yes, like with networking being a huge part of it, would you recommend something like Sports Management Worldwide? Like, do you think they're a beneficial program as far as learning and networking?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't know a ton about them. So I'm probably not the best person to ask about it just because I've heard of them, but I don't know a lot about them. So I think, talking to other people who might have been through that program to see if it was beneficial for them would probably be a good idea. Um, I just don't have a lot of info on them, to be honest with you. So, um,
Gotcha.
yeah, sorry.
All right. Hey, Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, so similar question. I thought I heard somebody mention the soldiers to sideline. Do you have any experience with them? And because I currently registered for football. I'm more of a soccer guy, but I was like, I like football, so something maybe to get into. And I already do coaching and try to learn for some folks. So I just wanted to get kind of your experience on it and what your thought process is on the program.
Yeah, absolutely. So Soldiers of Sidelines is a fantastic partner for us. So with the American Bowl, part of our mission, we want to have a platform for college football players to compete, to earn opportunities at the next level for them. There was a vacuum after the NFLPA Bowl went away. So this is something that the NFL really felt that was necessary and needed for college athletes. But through that, we also want to use this game as a platform to support members of the military community. We've been doing that with our partnership with Soldiers to Sidelines, who they are awesome. It's a great organization for veterans like yourselves to, really get experience with coaching and learn how to run a practice. And, it might be at the youth level, the high school level. That's where you're getting started and getting, certified through them. This is how we put together a practice schedule. This is what a script looks like. So, all right, when two teams are coming to practice, we don't just go, "Hey, what do you guys want to do today?" Like we script it out. So you got, all right, offense is running these plays, defense is running these plays. We can kind of work through them. So it's, learning how to do that and what that looks like. But it's a great organization. We're really, really excited and thrilled with how our partnership's been going. We were able to have 10 soldier coaches with varying levels of coaching experience, and then two operations support hands to help us with the American Bowl. I can't recommend them enough. As a way to get involved with coaching. It's one avenue. I'm sure there are more out there. So kind of doing your research and seeing what else exists. But I would say if you can get involved with them, I would absolutely recommend that because it's a great way to get involved in coaching if you're trying to get experience.
Awesome, appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Hey, so you spent some time at the Naval Academy doing all that squid stuff. Those guys, take my shot over the bow for them. How well do you see the matchup between sports and military as having very, very similar structures
Yeah,
for
great
planning?
question. So very, very, very aligned. So you have, in football, the difference is people aren't really they're not gonna die if things don't get done. But uh,
Hopefully.
yeah, hopefully. But the pressure is there to get things done quickly, efficiently, and to the best way possible. So everybody's counting on you to do your job. So there's a lot of crossover between military and college football, pro football, where the demands are high. We need to get this done immediately. The culture of, people may not speak to you. You're gonna get MF'd sometimes. If things
Nothing
don't.
new.
Yeah, the head coach doesn't like how things are going. So somebody who was an accountant who decides to get into college football, it can be a little jarring sometimes. Um, but it's the parallels are definitely there in terms of, the punctuality, in terms of, you're recruiting 16, 17, 18-year olds to be a part of your program, and you are determining whether they're going to be a good fit for your culture or whether they can be. These are things that you can coach and provide leadership for them to become, young men who are going to be leaders in your program and in your community. So, the people from the military community have this instilled in them. And when they come into college football, they're really good fits because of, what they've experienced here. And then your livelihood depends on 18 to 22, 23 year olds to do the things that you're asking them to do. So, you have to provide clear guidelines for them, clear coaching, and they're still people and they're young people who are learning. So you have to be a leader for them and really coach them up on, you have to spend all this time off the field with them. There's only so much time on the field where you're coaching them athletically to do the things that they're supposed to be doing. A lot of the problems arise off the field. So it's really, you are developing a culture, and people who come from with military backgrounds are very, very aware of the things that come up with that, especially with young people. So there's a really good fit for members of the military to jump into a football program and be able to fit with really little issue.
It's funny because like when you're saying that, all I could think of is, like it said to you, is like we get the brand new kid out of basic training in tech school or AIT or whatever it is, and we got to knock the stupid out of them
Mhm.
to get them in line. Not all of them, but a fair chunk. And it's seldom at work. It's because of the crap they're doing outside of work 70% of the time, where like, hey, dude, showed up hungover. Boy, you gonna run today.
Oh yeah. So there's and that's I know a lot of former military members become strength coaches sometimes or in operations because if you are very good at correcting people, strength coaches tend to be a good fit because they're usually enforcers for the program. So yeah, there's definitely some crossover there that makes a lot of sense.
The internal professional goon.
Mhm.
Hey, Garrett, go ahead.
You mentioned the veteran community trying to start a career in the coaching capacity. Do you have any experience with any veterans trying to go back and playing sports themselves?
Oh, that is a good question. I know we had um short answer, not really. Long answer, I know we had a Navy SEAL who had a pro day at Navy while I was there with Navy football, which is when you have players from your program, they do their workout essentially like a pre-draft workout in front of scouts. So they probably aren't getting invited to the combine, but scouts want to come see them. And so you'll get players from smaller schools that come. Um, I believe he might have played for an FCS program after he was done with his service. And so he had his pro day, but that's about as little as I know about it, to be honest with you. I know a lot of the times those are academy players, who might have to have their service obligation and they come back. Um, but I don't think it's very common unless if you're thinking about trying out for the Broncos. It's my team today, I guess. I'm calling out the Broncos.
Yeah, they lost. Good. I met one guy in my career. He was going to Texas Tech. He did one tour in the Air Force, and he got picked up. I think it was at Texas Tech as a linebacker, or not a linebacker, but a fullback. And just looking at him, it was like, yeah, dude, you're an NFL fullback, the size of this guy, but he's the only dude I had ever met in 28 years that had said that. So yeah, definitely a rarer thing because like anything else, they want to see that standard progress from, middle school, high school, college, and then up. Is that kind of what you're saying there?
Yeah, it's a little harder, especially age is a factor, when teams are looking at people too. So if you're and depending on your position and there are certain things where if you have to stand out athletically or with certain skill sets where teams are going to be looking for that. So, they're just things where if you are in the top percentile of, hey, you're 6'7", you're 300 pounds, but you're also really fast and athletic. Those are things that stand out. So like the NFL IPP programs, the International Pathway Program, they find people that are kind of freak athletes that are pretty raw, so they may not have the football background, but they can develop them, because they're athletes. So if you're a freak athlete, there's a way potentially, but it may not be NFL. Maybe it's, lower level. I know for college, if you have eligibility, if you haven't played in college, that's something where, for D3, D2, FCS, those are, potentially realistic opportunities for you. If you really want to go back and play and you don't have your undergrad, you could go play college potentially.
Cool. Is there any like certifications or classes specifically where the industry goes, oh, that's nice?
Depends on what you're trying to accomplish. So as I was talking about with larger organizations, so if you're working for, Alabama, they're going to have more departments that exist. So if you are um, trying to work in football operations or coaching or um, video, you don't necessarily need to have certifications. If you're trying to be a strength coach, you do. There are certifications that exist where, yes, they want to see that you have those. Nutrition, that's another one where, that's helpful. There are certifications that exist. Equipment, there's also, that's one I think once you start working in equipment, then that certification, you can get that once you're working in it. But that's another one. So I would say those are kind of the big ones for personnel and recruiting. Those don't really exist. Um, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I really think it's more so just, with your backgrounds, just being able to display that, hey, this is what I've been able to do. I've led this amount of people. This is, what we were um, successful in our operations and showing that you can, lead a department, but also be led. I think those are things that stand out. But that's a great question. I don't know if there's necessarily like outside of a few positions, ones where you might necessarily need certifications.
So you're getting, because I know it, but you have any stories from the job where you go, I cannot believe that this happened?
There's the one that we talked about, but when I was with Navy football, we played SMU, and that was a Friday night game. And George Bush was at that game actually, so I met him briefly, which was pretty cool. But whenever SMU scores a touchdown, they run the horse diagonally across the field. And so after SMU scored, the horse pooped all over the field, and we had a 15-minute game delay, which was kind of nuts. But I know not really like a professional story, but
Some of the things you see, like what job was it that had to clean that up so they know what to avoid?
yeah, I think they had equipment kids with like Gatorade cups. It was kind of gnarly, but yeah, not great. But yeah, I would say just like some of the other stories of just seeing players that you coach develop and learn. It's really cool to see that process and progress from them. So, the things that you try to help people, whether it was when I was a video coordinator and I had students who aren't football players, but you're trying to help them develop, they're trying to work in the industry as well, or, they've got other things going on, but getting them to buy into the team mentality and this is what we're trying to accomplish here, versus players that you're coaching up, that's a little bit easier to get them to understand what their value and impact is. It's cool to see people grow in those positions and then you yourself grow from that because you're who everybody's looking to for information. So I would say that's just generally like a really cool thing I've noticed through my career so far, is just being in that position and having the privilege of having people hold you accountable for things. Been pretty cool.
Yeah. I've been going back and forth a bunch of times, but do you have any questions for this group that you kind of like to ask just to get, test the waters, see what the thoughts are?
Yeah, how many of you would like to work in sports? And whether that's high school, college, pro, is there anybody in here who has thought about that? And you can just throw a thumbs up or so it seems like we've got a few. Um, I guess in terms of what are some of the roles that you guys are interested in? Is it more so coaching? Is it more so operations? Is it like learning more about those roles? Because I know that I've kind of thrown out a few different things here, and for people that haven't worked in it, I know I have a different perspective than you might, so I probably just kind of gloss over all these different roles. But if there's something in particular that, what are you guys interested in?
Yeah, throw a hand up if you got a question. But I noticed that, oh yeah, hey Trenton, go ahead.
Yeah, I kind of looked into it already. I applied for a couple positions with NFL and like the Atlanta Falcons and their like IT media department.
Cool.
So those roles are interesting to me. So
Yeah, great. And I'm glad you said that too, because when you think about like an NFL team or even a big college team, there are two entities. So you have the team, and so you've got, all right, these are the coaches, the scouts, general manager, video people, operations, these roles. And then you have the other side, which is the business of the team. So you've got, all right, this is where you've got ticket sales, marketing, operations, and that's business operations and IT. That would be more on the business operations side. And so it's, almost it's like getting a job with a company versus getting a job with a team for a coaching position. So you kind of treat it that way. It's just as competitive as trying to get a job with a team, but you're getting a job with the business of the team.
Yeah.
So that's going to be another one where it's similarly, hey, you want to connect with people and network who are in that business. And I know this is still kind of newer to me, but the military outreach positions within those businesses, just getting in touch with them and also people who work um, in those roles, I think it'd be really good to connect with them. So I'm glad you said something there because there are a couple different, avenues that you can go down there.
Yeah, I've reached out to some people in their like marketing department because I'm overseas right now and I know they're expanding to like games overseas. So I reached out to some people over there and the lady that works in their marketing department. So
Good idea.
Yeah,
it works.
good way to do it because it's that's another thing with sports too. It's like you've got these positions that are posted. You are going to have so many people that apply to it. So you want to reach out and connect with people who work in that organization and get advice on the positions and what they're looking for and connect with them and let them know you've applied. Because those are, firstly, you want to get advice and then you want to, ask about those jobs because, learning about what they're looking for and hey, maybe I'd love to know what a candidate for this position looks like, and getting them to respond to you. Because then otherwise your resume is in the stack of paper there. So, you really want to connect with the people who are doing the hiring there and really get some advice and let them know that you've applied.
Show you're hungry. Sean.
Hey, what's going on, Christian? Thanks for your time today. So my background's Navy pilot. The larger FBS schools and in the professional sports realm, I feel like I've seen like talking to airline pilots and stuff that um, seems like most teams have just charter more or less from like major airlines and stuff like that. Um, is that more or less what you see? Like being a actual pilot for a specific team is absolutely a dream job.
Yeah. So in terms of what ends up happening, and this is what I've experienced. So you end up chartering a flight with a specific airline. So with Navy, we were Southwest. With Louisville, I think we were United, but we would just charter the whole plane. And so I think we would have the same air, can't think of the word, stewardess that would come through. And then the pilots, I'm not sure if we have the same ones every time or not, but that's only, we had 6 away games on average per team. So I would say for NFL, they have their own planes most of the time where they will have a dedicated crew for those planes. So I would say NFL would probably be the ones that would have their dedicated planes versus in college, at least in my experience, we would charter through an airline and then that would
Yep.
be, the plane that we would use for that. But yeah, that would be a cool job. Yeah, that would be a very cool job.
You probably have to kill one of the previous pilots and happen to be there an hour later, be like, hey, I'm experienced.
Yeah, no, for sure. I've heard that you can kind of just like see it on the line, like college, you can specifically like kind of see it on the line and like bid on it, but the junior pilots aren't having the you don't have the seniority to win those bids. So
Yeah, I've only flown drones to film practice, so my knowledge on that's probably a little limited. But yeah, that is an interesting that would be a really cool position.
thanks.
That's pretty good stuff, man. Talk to me about like mentorship. I mean, I imagine you must have had a couple mentors out there and got some sage advice from them. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think it's really helpful. For me, I don't know if there's one person in particular where I just said, hey, this is going to be the person where I'm going to get a lot of it. But I tried to just ask around to learn. from people who were in positions that I wanted to be in. So how could I kind of reverse engineer some of the things that they've done and ask them for their opinions on, what should I be focused on? What should my next move be? What should, if I'm trying to get back into this, when I was still early in my career, how do I make this happen, and what are some of the things I should be thinking about or looking for? So all the job postings that you see, like, this is just another thing as I'm thinking of it. If you see a big school like Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, even some of the smaller ones too, when they post a job, that's one of two things. It's an actual job that's posted for you to apply for, and then, reach out to them and see what the status is. Or number two, that's an announcement that someone has been hired. So, that's just something to keep in mind when you see all these jobs. The time to reach out is before they have those jobs posted. So you want to have relationships with people in the building, and then, ask about, hey, if these are the positions that we're looking for, what's the best way to, get into them, and what advice do you have? So then once those positions are open, but not necessarily posted yet, you can be somebody that's top of mind there. Because the way that it works usually is, all right, you've got a group of coaches, and all right, we have a recruiting coordinator position open. Who's got some names? And then they'll ask, in a staff meeting, and then that's how names are brought up. So you want your name to be one of the names that's brought up there. So it's really just being a part of that conversation there and asking, So, once they post that job, somebody could have already gotten their apartment and moved all their shit there, and they're starting in the building, but they're legally obligated to post that position. So,
Right.
keep,
I have posted those jobs where it's
right.
like, okay, hey, it's got to go internal and external. We know who we're going to hire, and you got to go through the motions because of the legality. Do your interviews, look at that stuff, but it's going to come down to that old school thing of like, hey, we need somebody who knows a guy. Because it's a small world, and they want to have that trust and that bond and that contact, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of goes in the mentorship thing of, when you're asking around and asking people about how to get involved in these positions, and, like, hey, I'm willing to work for free and get some experience here and do these things, set yourself apart a little bit of, getting some of that advice. But then you start to get a feel for, all right, these are some of the positions that are opening. This is when they post them. This is when I should be looking. I think is pretty helpful. So, yeah, it's difficult, to get into those roles. You're gonna get so many no's before you get a yes. You're basically in sales until, you are trying to sell yourself and get these positions, but you're trying to get as much advice from people and information that you can use to, help yourself get into those positions.
It's good stuff. So, hey, my last question. So, quick summary of everything you said. What's your top piece of advice for, somebody a vet brand new to this industry to start setting themselves up on that path and those steps?
Yeah, great question. I think there are a couple things. So understanding that no football career is linear. So I can't tell you that this move is going to be the best move for you to move forward to what you want. So, you might start in operations. I started in video. My dream was not to be a video coordinator. So, but I've did it for 3 years after doing it in undergrad for 3 years. So, I mean, I spent a good amount of time doing it, but that'll gave me value for programs to allow me into the building and to do that to the best of my ability, that developed trust and allowed me to do other things. So, that's kind of using your skill set and some of the things you have experience with, and just being willing to do the things that necessarily not everybody wants to do. You get that shit done, you develop trust. That's how you can, get into the roles that you want to do. So you develop value as much as you possibly can for these programs, to where if a coach goes somewhere else, because this is also an industry where, stability is not necessarily the definition of this industry. So when a coach takes a job somewhere else, you want them to say, I have to take this person with me. They get everything done. This is somebody who's critical to the success of our organization. So just making sure that you can provide value as much as possible every single day. So I think that that's something that's, really beneficial, and especially earlier in your career. Just once you get in, just make it impossible for them to say, yeah, why is this person here?
dig in like a tick and do a hell of a good job.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is awesome. Hey, Chris, thank you very much for coming out. Chris Covyeau, Director of Football Operations and National Scout for the American Bowl. Thank you very much for taking some time with us. Do you have any closing thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, just I'm really grateful to be able to share my experiences and any advice with you guys. Please connect with me on LinkedIn or, send me any messages. I'm more than happy to, answer any other questions that you might have. I know it's difficult to get in, but if you think about the long game here of, hey, I'm not in this for, I don't need to be the GM at Alabama in 6 months. If you're thinking, you know, 5, 10 years, that's a position that I'm going to have. You're going to, if you play the long game, you will get there. You will have these opportunities that are available to you. It's just you have to persevere and push through and just fight every day, to provide value. So I think those are the things that will help you guys. But I'm truly grateful for you having me here. Thank you for letting me spend some time with you guys. I'm wishing for success for all of you. I strongly recommend checking out Soldiers to Sidelines, and if there's any way that I can help you, please let me know.
Awesome. Chris, thank you very much. And we will talk again to you soon.